We will begin the lecture. So last time we were looking at surfaces and the areas of surfaces. So we had proved the following formula, namely the surface area of a surface whose parameterization is given by RUV, where U and V vary over a region R. In the plane, UV plane, the surface area is given by the double integral over R of RU cross RV. So what is RU cross RV? That is the normal vector to the surface at the point. So there is a norm of, or the magnitude of the normal vector, RU cross RV, norm du dv. So this was the surface area when a parameterization is given. We also had another representation when the surface is given explicitly, say z is equal to hxy, x and y vary in a region R in the xy plane. Then the normal RU cross RV is given by 1 plus hx square plus hy square. So just putting the value of that square root norm, surface area is given by this formula. And we also showed that this can also be represented in terms of the angle, right, between the unit normal and the k vector, right? And this angle is always acute angle, so secant gamma. And this we can represent only when n dot k is not equal to 0, because n dot k will give you only cos gamma. We are looking at secant gamma. So that should not be equal to 0. Of course, that condition has to be put. So whenever n dot k is not equal to 0, the surface area can also be represented as the double integral secant gamma. It will look like a function of one variable, secant gamma, right? Actually, it depends on is the angle at that point, xy, right? So it depends on the point. So it is a function of two variables. This is the angle between the unit normal at that point, which is a function of two variables dot k. And secant gamma is of course 1 over n dot k. So this all we had done, and I think we were looking at that one example that we want to find the surface area of the cone between z is equal to 0 and 1. Okay, so either we can write it explicitly, this z is between 0 and 1, so we can write z is equal to square root of x square plus y square. So a parameterization can be given as xi plus yj plus square root of x square plus y square k. And x and y, what will be x and y varying in that case? The projection of the surface onto the xy plane, because we are taking x and y as the parameters. So that is the disk here. Okay, the surface we are looking at, so that will be the circle. So what will be the unit normal to this cone? So that you can find from here, you can write that equation as x square plus y square minus z square if you like. Okay, without writing parameterization, you can take the gradient vectors, right, as a normal. So unit normal is given by this, computing from here, right, gradient of this function. So that gives you the unit normal. So n dot k comes out to be minus 1 over square root of 2, right. So what will be secant gamma? So secant gamma will be equal to norm of 1 over norm of that, so that is square root of 2. And now you see how simple that integral becomes if we use that formula that the surface area is given by the projection onto the xy plane, integral of secant gamma, right. So using that formula over the integration over r, that is the projection of the surface onto the xy plane, that is a circle of radius 1, we can give a parameterization of that x between 0 and 1, okay, and y going from, okay. So compute, and the previous one x should be from minus 1 to 1, that circle, right? X goes from minus 1 to 1, y goes from the lower circle to the upper circle. So that's minus 1 to 1, right? Square root, y is equal to square root of minus 1 minus x square to plus square root. So the main thing is secant gamma actually turns out to be a constant here, right? Which is square root of 2. So it comes out and remaining, that is the, okay. So let us observe one thing, that this we projected the surface onto the xy plane. We said the surface is explicitly representable as z is equal to a function of x and y. Similar formulas hold when your surface is projectable onto other planes, coordinate planes. So for example, if you are able to find y in terms of x and z, then correspondingly you will have the formula. You will write as secant beta, where beta is the acute angle between the corresponding normal and unit normal and the y vector, that is j vector. And similarly the third one you will have when it is x is representable in terms of y and z. Similarly, third formula will be there, right? Projectable onto the xy plane, xz plane or yz plane. Accordingly, you will take the acute angle between the unit normal and the appropriate axis. Okay, let us see an application of this, why it is necessary to consider all possible cases. Let us find the area of the cylinder, which is x minus a square plus y square equal to a square, that lies inside the upper part of the sphere x square plus y square plus z square equal to 4a square. So we are given a sphere of radius 2a and you are given a cylinder x minus a square. So this is a cylinder, z is free. So a line parallel to z axis is going to be the axis. It is not centered at 0, 0, right? The axis is not the z axis but shifted, right? So x is equal to a, that line, right? That line is the axis. So we want to find what is the portion of that cylinder which lies inside the sphere. Okay? So to do that, let us write the cylinder as in terms of implicit equation. So x square plus y square, open it out, so it is minus 2ax is equal to 0. Bring everything on one side, right? fx yz is equal to 0. That is a cylinder. So you can find the gradient vector for this, right? To find the normal. So this is the gradient vector. So now let us look at, if we want to use that secant gamma, right? We have to take the unit normal and take the angle between the unit normal and the k vector. But in this case, there is no k vector here, right? So in this case, you see that there is a cylinder. So all the normal vectors are going to be coming out of it. So angle with the z-axis is going to be pi by 2. So that dot product, that secant gamma is not going to be meaningful because that is going to be not defined. Cos gamma is going to be equal to 0. So in such a case, we should not be projecting our surface onto the xy plane. Probably we should project it onto some other coordinate plane, xz plane or yz plane, wherever that dot product of the unit normal with the appropriate axis is not equal to 0. So that care has to be taken. So in this case, we can't project onto the xy plane. So this is the, right, this is the sphere and that is the base of the cylinder. So this is going to go up like this, right? So this is the projection onto the, okay. So let us project it onto the xz plane. Instead of xy, let us project it onto the, so what is the surface? That is x square plus y square minus 2ax is equal to 0 inside this. So I want to know the projection onto the xz plane. So how will you find the projection onto the xz plane? From these two, you have to eliminate the variable, right? Xz, only in terms of x and z equation you have to get. So once you do that, from here, you will see that that projection is x going from 0 to 2a, right? And z going from, right, x square plus y square is equal to 2ax. So you put in this equation. So z square is equal to 4a square minus 2ax. So z goes equal to square root because only the upper part we are looking at. Okay. So from these two equations, you get your projection onto the xz plane. Once that is obtained, you can find out the normal. Okay. So that normal is equal to 2a. Okay, for that cone. So now you find that you are projecting onto the xz plane. So what is the appropriate axis you should be looking at? The one perpendicular, that is j, right? Unit vector j. So look at the dot product of that. To compute that, that is the dot product. Find the norm of that, n dot j. So that will be this divided by the norm of that. So this comes out to be this quantity. Is that clear what we are doing? Instead of projecting onto the xy plane, because the dot product comes out to be 0, that angle is not meaningful. There is pi by 2 always, right? So we project it onto some other coordinate plane, okay, and calculate the things accordingly. So this is n dot j. So what will be our secant gamma? We can compute 1 over n dot j, that is secant gamma, okay. Here should be dx dz, that is missing, right, variables of integration. So put that value, projection, and this you have already computed. So put that value, and this is a double integral law which you can compute. So the basic idea is to compute this surface areas, you have to take the appropriate equation of the surface, whether you want to take it parameterization or directly using secant gamma or using n dot k, right? So you have to decide according to the problem which gives you a easier and meaningful. So put the values and compute, which we can compute. Let us just try to interpret these formulas in terms of when the equation of the surface is given implicitly, right? Implicit means what? Of course, we are given that fx, yz is equal to 0, right? We want to write another way of interpreting this surface area. So, what we are going to use is, you have fx, yz is equal to 0, and you know the surface is, let us assume that your implicit function theorem is applicable and you are able to represent for the sake of it, right? We are not going to use that thing actually, but the surface you can represent one variable in terms of the other variables. If that is the case, right, so let us say we are able to represent z in terms of x and y. Finally, we will try to remove this z from the picture completely, right? So if this is representable, then we can write hx. See, what was the unit normal or the normal vector comes out when z is equal to hxy? It is minus hxi minus hyj plus k, right? So this partial derivatives of this function s by implicit function theorem can be represented in terms of partial derivatives of the function fx, yz. That is the only main thing to observe, right? So you can put the appropriate values in the formula. So whereas square root of hx square plus hy square plus 1, there you will put all these expressions which are purely in terms of f, right? Partial derivatives of f. So you don't have to do any computation in that case. So surface area is this. So put this value hx square, hy square and simplify. That is what the formula looks like, right? So what we have not done anything. We have just said assume, because your surface is there, if it is expressible in terms of, right, one variable in terms of other, so this should be the formula. So that is here, right, it is symmetric. So it is projectable onto the xy plane. We are able to see the projection onto the xy plane, but we don't want to compute that function. See what is the advantage of this? You are given an implicit equation fx, yz is equal to 0. You know you can project it onto the xy plane. You can see the projection, but the computation of that h, the function in terms of x and y may be complicated. So you want to use directly that function f. So here expression of the integrand is purely in terms of the function f. Of course we have to compute the projection, right? Otherwise this will not work. For anything, even if a parametric equation is given, you have to have uv belonging to a plane, right? Some area in the plane. So you have to have something, right? Either a parameterization where you transform it into a function of two variables, double integral, or projection and able to do it. Otherwise you cannot compute surface areas, right? So there are three ways, or you can say, of computing. One is by parameterization, right? The surface area is given by the norm of Ru cross Rv dV, or explicitly given by the Ru cross Rv, the norm you can write as square root of 1 plus hx square plus hy square. You can also write that in terms of secant gamma, where secant gamma, right, gamma is the angle, acute angle between z axis and the unit normal. Okay, and this is the implicit function f coming into the picture, putting the values of hx and fy. If you recall, we had also found the area of surface of revolution, right? Some time back. You take a curve, say graph of a function, right, in the xy plane and rotate it around y-axis or rotate it around x-axis. You will get a surface. How to find the area of that? Using integration of function of one variable, right? So now we have got another way of finding surface areas. We are saying using parameterizations and so on. Are those two things compatible with each other or not? That formula is same as this formula. We just want to verify that. Okay. So let us just recall what was the surface of revolution. Z is equal to fx is a function, right? Its graph is rotated about z-axis. Okay. So you get. So what was the area? Idea was to take a small piece of that curve and rotate it, right? That gives you a cylinder of thickness ds. Distance is x, so radius is x, so 2 pi x, right? So write down that expression. So that is, I have just written it again. So this is small portion rotated, and that gives you 2 pi x delta s. Delta s is a small portion of the surface, or portion of the curve which is being rotated. That gives you a cylinder. So that is the area of the cylinder, surface area of the cylinder, and you integrate. So that was the formula that we obtained in one variable. We want to see whether the same formula will get when we do it for our new method of parameterization. So first of all, for a surface of revolution, I want to give a parameterization, right? So how do we give a parameterization for surface of revolution? is a graph of a function. Okay, we want to rotate it, right? So what is the parameterization coming? See, something is being rotated, right? You take a point, say x is A and B, so you take at a point, the point there, right? And that is being rotated. So you have to know what is that height that you are taking, and then polar coordinates will help you, essentially, because you are rotating in a circle of fixed radius, right? So let us write down the parameterization. You can use cylindrical coordinates. So u cos Vi, u sin Vj plus Fu, right? Times k. That z coordinate is going to be u at the point u, the height is Fu. So that height is fixed now. At that height you are rotating your point, right, on the surface. So that is given by u cos Vi, right? X is equal to r cos theta, y equal to r sin theta. Is it okay? So this is where u goes from A to B. Essentially, instead of x we have written u, that's all. And the polar coordinates, right, where radius is fixed as Fu. So V goes from 0 to 2 pi. So this is the parameterization now. So to find surface area, what we should do? Find Ru, partial derivative of this with respect to u, partial derivative of this with respect to V, Ru cross Rv, calculate the norm and put that value in that integral. So let us do that computation to assure us that we will get actually what we want. So Ru, right, partial derivative of this with respect to u. So this is u cos V. Okay, u vanishes f prime of u. Similarly, Ru cross Rv, that is the determinant. Okay, Rv, put the values and compute the coefficients. So that comes out to be. Okay, now norm of that. So this square plus this square. Okay, so when you compute, it is u square plus 1 plus f prime u square. You see, precisely same thing is coming back to you. So what is that surface 0 to 2 pi? Right? What is the surface area? Integral over the projection. Okay, projection area is going to be 0 to 2 pi A going to B, that circle, right? So 0 to 2 pi A to B, Ru cross Rv norm, right? So as you see, that is only u du. This thing is independent of u. So integral of u, so that is gives you 2 pi. So it is same as 2 pi x 1 plus f prime x square. Same formula, right? So that assures us that whether you do it by parameterization. So basically this is to tell us that the way we are looking at the things, right, saying that you take a small piece and do it and parameterization and everything, that is consistent with our earlier knowledge of doing things. Nothing else is destroyed, right? It's like building a 7-story building and you have already built first story and suddenly you want to put up a second story on top of it or third story on top of it, but you don't want your first story to be demolished somehow, right? So you have to see what is the strength of the first story, right? The column should be, architecture point of view, it should be consistent with the, what was the structural consistencies has to be maintained. It's something similar. Mathematics is building one top of the other. The ideas are built from one from the other, but without destroying the previous concepts. So that is same as this. So till now what we have done is, given a surface, we have tried to analyze what should be the way of finding the area of the surface, right? Various ways of looking at the area of the surface. Similar formulas. The next thing that we want to look at is, we are going parallel to what we have done it for curves. We had the curves, right? When we were looking at the curves in space, we first thing was we defined at what is called the length of a curve, arc length of a curve. Here we have defined surface, we now define what is the area of a surface. So, and there parameterization for the arc was important, for the curve was important to find out that. Here the parameterization of the surface is important to find the surface area. And the next thing we looked at was the line integral. Integral of a scalar field over a curve in space, right? So the next corresponding thing here should be looking at a scalar field and trying to integrate it over a surface in R3. So it is going to be something more than double integral. It is going to be a generalization of double integral. Double integral also is integration of a function over a surface where the surface is a plane surface, a plane region, right? But here the surface is not a plane region, it is something in R3 over which a function is defined, function f is defined, and we want to integrate that function over that surface. Why we want to do that, right? The natural question should be, just for the sake of saying that we have done something similar for curves in space, let us do something similar now in for surfaces. Yes, of course, the mathematicians do that very often for the sake of just extending the idea from curves in space to surfaces in space. They do it. Whether this has applications or not, they don't bother much about it. But in our case here, at least this idea is not purely for the sake of generalization. A simple concept like you have got a surface, okay, which is, you can think, surface is like something like a planar thing, but twisted kind of thing. You can imagine that kind of thing, right? Is in some sense its dimension is, we have not defined what is the dimension of a surface, but you can visualize the dimension is 2, right? Thickness is very small. The third dimension is missing. It's only something of dimension 2, heuristically, right? We have defined its area, right? Now supposing you have a metallic sheet in some form, I want to find its weight. I want to find what is the mass of this surface, right? Now, of course, you will say take it to a weighing machine and put it there and get it. What's the problem? So mathematically we want to do it. So the idea is, let us assume the metallic sheet has got uniform density, right? The material of which it is made of has uniform density, means what? At any point on the surface, right, it has some density. Let us not say uniform, that will be a special case. At every point there is a density of that metal, right? So let us call it a rho xy. It is a function of rho xy z, function of 3 variables, right? Now if I want to find the weight or the mass of this, right, then I will take a small piece of that surface. I can take a point there and look at the density, assume the density remains constant in that small piece for the sake of, right, the piece is very, very small. Then what will be the mass of that small piece? Rho xyz into delta s, where s is a piece of that surface. And if you want to find out the whole mass, somehow you should integrate that now. So something like fxyz ds should be defined, right? That is the idea. It is something similar to a curve in space. A thin metallic wire was there and we were trying to find the weight of the thin metallic wire. Here now it is a surface. So we'll take a small piece of the surface. So let us try to make this idea more precise. So how will you make it more precise? A surface is given, you divide it into smaller pieces, right, by drawing lines, right, parallel to something, say UV plane. You can draw lines in the UV plane, right, that will divide the surface into smaller pieces, delta Si, okay. For each piece, take a point in that piece, look at the density, assuming it remains constant in that piece. So rho xyz into delta Si, and try to sum it. Once you have summed it, you try to make the pieces smaller and smaller. Try to take the limit. That is what integration process is in general. So if that limit exists for the function f, you will call that as the surface integral of the function f over that surface. So the process is same, 1 variable, 2 variable, right, everywhere. So let us try to go through this process. So consider a metallic sheet S, we want to find its mass. So let us say density, so density is mass per unit area, right? That is what density of a thin metallic sheet will mean. So for a small piece, this is going to be the mass. So for total mass should be something like this, right? And to give a more precise meaning to this, so what we will do is, so we will try to form that sum kind of thing. Take the surface, divide it into finite number of smaller pieces. In each piece, pick up a point and look at the density at that point and form that sum, right? So that is approximate weight of the approximate. I shouldn't be using that words randomly, mass and weight, because physicists will kill me otherwise. There is a difference between mass and weight. Nice. Doesn't know where to go out, getting bored with the maths lecture probably. So let us, maximum size of that piece becomes smaller and smaller. So limit of that as the norm of, you will say, so this is what I have said, draw and make at any point, take the density and write down that sum. Okay. So if that limit exists, that will be called as the surface integral. Intuitive idea is very clear. What is the surface integral? And this will be represented by fxyz. That is a function of 3 variables. That is a scalar field being integrated over the surface S. And here you will write d capital S. Because keep in mind d small s was for line integrals, right? So to distinguish that you are looking at line integrals or surface integrals, for surface integrals we will write at D capital S here. Right? It should be very clear. Notation should be very clear. Now this is okay from the point of view of definition. Now we want to compute, right? For computation as well, whenever we have wanted to compute, a parameterization of the object is required, right? Even for a line integral, we said take small pieces and integrate, right? So to integrate this kind, to find this kind of a thing, to compute, we need a parameterization for the surface. So let us say a parameterization is given by UV going to RUV, okay? Where UV belong to a region R. So that is a parameterization of the surface S. So essentially the idea is, if this integral is going to make sense, I should replace ds, right? ds should be replaced by something more computable. And surface area just now we have computed. Surface area was equal to integral, okay? So of the function norm of RU cross RV times du dv. So you can treat that as ds is equal to norm RU cross RV du dv in terms of that. So that is essentially that can be proved rigorously. This is the intuitive way of looking at only, right? But one can prove it rigorously that when we have got this parameterization, f is continuous. Of course, you have to say that this s should be nice, right? It cannot be the whole of say xy plane, for example. Even the double integral doesn't make sense over the whole of xy plane. It should be a close bounded kind of region. So we assume that this R is the domain of UV, right? Is a closed bounded set in the UV plane. F is continuous. Then this thing can be interpreted as, can be represented as F evaluated on the surface, of course, F of x UV, y UV, z UV, like in the case of line integral, F xt, yt, zt into, right? So here is norm of RU cross RV, du, dv, right? Because ds is, this is what is ds intuitively. Is it clear? So this is the way we are going to compute the surface integrals for a surface S whose parameterization is given by RU V, where U and V vary over a region R. Of course, for all this thing to be meaningful, we should say put nice conditions like F is continuous, so that this, right, and curve is smooth, so x, y, z, they are all continuous. RU V exists, that is not equal to 0, it is a regular surface, right? We have assumed that the norm is not equal to 0 at any point, so this is meaningful and it exists, right? Essentially, if you look at it as a function of two variables, this integrand is a continuous function of two variables, right? Is a double integral. Integral is a continuous function of two variables and R is closed and bounded. So this double integral makes sense, right? That is the idea, that right hand side should make sense, and it makes sense, and it is equal to the surface integral of the function f over the surface S. So it's clear to everybody? Also keep in mind, keep on revising your line integrals. Everything is going parallel to that. Okay, line integral, and now we got surface integral. So let us just look at example. So we want to evaluate the function fxyz is y square ds, where what is the surface S? Let us take a nice surface that is a unit sphere, right? So to compute, first of all, you should have to give a parameterization for the surface. So for this, many parameterizations are available. You can have Cartesian coordinate parameterization, you can give cylindrical coordinate parameterization, or you can give spherical parameterization. So let us choose any one of them. So let us give the spherical coordinate parameterization. So that is r theta phi, right? Phi is the angle position vector of the vertical, right? Z axis angle, and theta is the angle the projection of that position vector has in the xy plane, polar coordinate. So that is, and r is equal to 1 because it is a sphere of radius 1, right? And we have computed r theta. We have done this computation many times by now. So that is equal to sine phi. So we put the value. So f in terms of theta and phi. So f function is y square, right? So that in terms of that y component, okay, on the sphere. So that is a y component, sine theta, sine phi, y square, okay? And this is sine phi, RU cross RV norm, sine phi, d theta, d phi. Clear? So that is going to be the surface integral. And the function of two variables, and now you know how to integrate functions of two variables. You can write that because it is you are using, that is polar coordinates only, right? Theta and phi, you know the limits. So split into iterated integrals, 0 to 2 pi, and phi is from 0 to pi. So integrate one at a time. So the integration you can complete. Okay. So the basic idea is to find surface area, surface integral, you need first of all a parameterization. And then you have to compute what is RU. Yes?
So when we were computing the mass, we were given rho, that is mass per unit volume.
No, mass per unit area. Right.
So that rho into dx, why do we integrate twice?
Why do we need it?
Why do we need to integrate it twice?
This is not, we will not integrate it twice. Well, okay, it's a good question in the sense that, see, surface area, we also wrote twice. Why did we write twice? Definition of surface area.
Dx into dy.
That is only if you have a parameterization. Right? To indicate that you are in two dimension in some sense. Okay? All integrals with respect, when you are doing with respect to surfaces, are going to be represented by two signs. There is just a notation to indicate that you are integrating over surfaces. Okay? See, why one should always write a curve by C? I can write a curve denoted by S. Right? This is my notation only. And if you write single and over S, then you are not very sure by looking at the expression itself whether you are doing a line integral or you are doing a surface integral. Right? So, mathematicians try to make it very clear by looking at the notation, the abstract notation itself, the name of that object, you should be able to say what you are doing. There should be no confusion at all. So for line integrals, a single integral is used. For surfaces, anything computed with respect to surfaces, two integral signs are put, right, over S, surface area, right, or surface integral. Two integrals over S, F, D, capital S. So this symbol indicates you are integrating a function over a surface. That's all, nothing more than that. It has nothing to do with how it is computed, right? It comes out so that in line integrals, when you compute it is only one integral, right? It becomes a Riemann integral. In two variables, the surface area is representable as double integrals. Fine, okay? So that's why you try to keep sort of notations consistent with our what we are doing. Okay, right, good. So this was surface area given in terms of a parameterization. Of course, there is other form when you are given a surface explicitly. So z is equal to fxy. So there is no problem now. Once we know what is to be done, if z is equal to hxy, then we know how to compute Ru cross Rv. We can give a parameterization and put the value of that Ru cross Rv in that integral, in the double integral, right? So not much problem comes. So if this is given by this, let us just go through it. So I am saying it again and again, this is one parameterization for surface expressed explicitly as z is equal to hxy. So once we do that, we know this is given by this. So we get the formula for if the surface is given by z is equal to function of two variables x and y, then x and y itself can be taken as the parameters for the parametric representation. That is essentially the idea of saying it is representable explicitly. Okay. Similarly, on the projections on the other coordinates, right? If it is so I will not write all the time the similar things because you should be able to write if the is projectable onto the xz plane or yz plane. Accordingly, the things will be written here, right? Okay. Okay. I have written it, so let me show you. So this is projectable onto yz plane. Right? So x is equal to a function of y and z. And similarly, there will be a third one, y representable as a function of x, z. So correspondingly, the partial derivatives and such things will come. Okay. So once you understand the basic idea, so we want to let us do one more example. Fxyz is equal to z square. That is a scalar field we are looking at, and the surface of the cone. Okay, z square is equal to this, between z is equal to 1 to 2. So what is to be done? Only need a parameterization for the surface, right? Whether you want to project it onto the xy plane, yz plane, or that is your choice. But here if you see, right, it is a cone, right, with axis as the z axis. So it is more easier to visually project it xy plane. So what will be the projection of this surface onto the xy plane? But keep in mind z between 1 and 2. So there is a lower z cutting at z equal to 1 going up to z is equal to 2. So the projection will be not a circular thing, but it will be a inner and the outer, right? Inner thing will be missing. Z is equal to less than or 1 equal to 1 will be not be there at all. So you will be looking at only the cone, only the annulus portion, right, where the circle of radius 1 to 2 in between that portion. Okay. So let us. So write a parameterization Rxy equal to this. The projection is x square plus y square bigger than or equal to 1, less than or equal to 2. Right. So now once you know parameterization, you know the projection. So this is what cutting at z is equal to 1, z is equal to 2 when you project it. So this portion is not there when the projection onto z is equal to 1. So this is missing, is only the annulus portion looking at. Easy to visualize it anyway. So put the, so Ru cross, Rx cross Ry, that is compute that we have already done actually in the previous example also, that came out to be square root 2. So just put the values and compute, so 1 to 2 R cube dr. Right? The basic idea is have a parameterization, okay, and parameterization you have to see it carefully on which plane you want to project, right? Or you want to use some other coordinates like in sphere, there is no projection we are looking at totally different things, cylindrical coordinates or spherical coordinates sometimes, or if something is being rotated then some height and then polar coordinates, cylindrical coordinates again. So appropriately a parameterization for the surface is to be given and things to be computed. So that answer comes out to be whatever it is. Okay. Let us do a small manipulation here. So we saw that for a surface given z is equal to hxy, okay, I can write the surface integral f ds to be equal to function f evaluated on the surface, f at x, y, z is hxy into the norm of Ru cross Rv, that is 1 plus hx square hy square dx dy. Right? Now this formula or this expression is valid for every scalar field f, which has nice properties, continuous and so on. Right? Now I can replace f by f. Right? I want to remove this expression on the right hand side. So I can change f to f divided by, this is for every function f. So in particular also true for f divided by 1 plus hx square plus hy square, because that function is never going to be 0 anyway, is 1 plus something. Whatever be the domain, whatever be the values of hx, right? So let us do that and you write, so you get that this, so this is a new right scalar field whose surface integral is equal to the double integral of f over the domain D. Right? I just divided, so I want to cancel out that factor. On the right hand side was f into something, g, let us say f into g. I have divided by g, the integrand of both sides. Okay, I have done nothing more than that. Because on the surface we know that this is not going to be 0, so I can divide that. So this gives me an expression of this type, f into this. But what is this thing? Whenever this is defined, what is this thing? In terms of the angle, that is secant gamma. So f secant gamma is given by this. I get a new expression. Okay, instead of f for every function f surface integral. So it says that the surface integral, so let us just write that was equal to this. So I'm just revising those concepts again. This was equal to Ru cross Rv, so dot product gives you cos gamma, so secant gamma is 1 over that thing. So cos gamma is 1 over this, so secant gamma is, so this is secant gamma actually. Okay, so okay, let me, what is happening? Okay, so basically what I am saying is f cos gamma, okay, now that expression 1 over that thing was, that is cos gamma, right? Other thing was secant gamma, so be careful what you are writing. So f cos gamma, okay, is equal to this so is on the right hand side now only the function f is appearing, and there is a double integral of the function f on the domain D, nothing more than that. So it says f cos gamma, we'll see that why we are writing it this way, it will have a application later on, that for any scalar field f, of course with nice conditions, continuous and so on, S is the surface, if cos gamma is the angle between the unit normal and the kx, right? The surface is expressible in terms of z is equal to hxy explicitly. Only in that case we are writing it is equal to this. So this is given by this expression. Okay, we will see what is the application of this. So similarly, three relations will hold like this. Supposing the surface is also projectable onto the xz plane and yz plane, so we will have integral of f cos beta ds, integral of f cos alpha beta gamma, right? Three things. So three expressions will be there depending on whether you are projecting onto the xy plane, yz plane or zx plane. You see, we'll come to it. I don't want to hurry too many things at one time. So let us just keep that as it is, that expression, that for a scalar field f, integral of f cos gamma is equal to the double integral of f over the domain, the projection onto the plane. Okay. For the time being, let us come out of it and let us see the concept of surface integrals, its applications, physical applications. Of course, we started with looking at the mass of a sheet, right? So that should be our first application, namely for a, right? Now we can say that this makes sense. This is the way it should be defined, where density should be a continuous function. Well, of course, mathematical condition has to be put that this is a continuous function, right, of the point x and y and z. Now, once you know the mass, you can also calculate center of gravity for a thin. Where does the center of gravity for the thin sheet lie? So, how will you calculate the center of gravity? By calculating the moments, right, about the respective planes, right, about the respective planes. So, you do that. So, let us calculate the moment around the yz plane. So, yz plane is there. How much is the distance of a point? That is x from that, right? A small mass if you take, x is the distance, this is the density, this is a small piece. So this is the moment of that small piece around the yz plane. Total moment is given by this, right, integral. And if you want to find now what is the center of gravity, the x coordinate, the moment around that plane divided by the total mass, right, like function of that for the line integrals that we did, same expression we did for line integrals, right. So what is center of gravity? It's the point where you can assume the whole mass of the body to lie. So that means what? If you take whole mass to be concentrated here, then its moment around that plane should be same as the moment of the body around that. So we are just equating. So if you want to calculate so these are three moments, and what does it give me? It gives me the x coordinate to be equal to this. Why is this formula we are using? Because m times x bar is equal to myz. So on the left side, x bar is the point where whole mass is concentrated. So this is the moment by looking at that point of view. myz is the moment computed via integrals. The two are equal. So that gives you value of x coordinate. Right? Similarly, y coordinate and z coordinate for center of gravity for a thin sheet you can compute using surface integrals. Right? So here note x, and this is x rho x y z. We are looking at the moment around the yz plane. Okay? So center of gravity, very much similar to the line integrals. A thin wire, what is the center of gravity of a thin piece of a wire? Okay. Right. Let us look at a physical application of this. We looked at line integral gave us something called a flux of a fluid flow across a curve. Right. In a planar region, a fluid is flowing, and there is a curve. How much fluid is flowing across that curve? Right. Flux integral we have, flux line integral we had. Same thing we can do in our 3 dimension. There is a surface and a fluid is flowing. How much is fluid flowing across a surface now? Right? So same idea we will do it. We will take a small piece of that surface and how much is the fluid flowing across it, and then try to sum it up. Okay? So let us look at V is the velocity vector for that fluid, right? At a point x, y, z, V is the velocity of the fluid flow, rho is the density. Keep, right, plane, we have done the similar thing. So rho times V, what does that give me? Right, that is a flux of the fluid, okay, moving across. Okay, so this is called the flux density also. So physicists call it as the flux density, and we want to compute what is the flux across the surface. So take a small piece, right, and this is the force with which it is going, but you have to go across, so you take the normal component, right, to the surface. In that direction, how much it is going. So F dot n, where n is the unit normal, give you the normal component across that surface, and this area is ds. So F dot n ds will be the flux across. So total should be the surface integral of F dot n ds. So that is the basic idea intuitively. So this is a surface, and a small piece you take, fluid is flowing, and this is a direction n. So that is, so a small piece, F dot n right? The component of the force flux which is going outside, the ds, and total should be defined as. So physically, intuitively, the flux should be defined as F dot N ds, right? Now comes the mathematical. There is a physics coming, physical problem coming. Now comes mathematics. Is this integral defined? Right? We have to say this integral should be a well-defined quantity. What does it mean? That means at least the integrand should be a continuous function. Even if S is nice, right? S is a finite surface, closed bounded and all kind of things. Integrand should be a continuous function, say. The force, the fluid, velocity, I can say that it is continuous, density is continuous and everything. There is something n hanging around. What is n? That is a unit normal on the surface. And I am saying, to this to be meaningful, n should be continuous. What does that mean? That means my surface is such, at any point I have a concept of unit normal, but as I vary the point, that unit normal should vary continuously on the surface, at the point varies on the surface. So that is the assumption we have to make about the surface. That my surface is such that at every point a unit normal exists, and as I vary the point on the surface, that unit normal will vary continuously. That may not be always true for all surfaces. That is the point. So let us make that assumption first. Okay? We'll say it is continuous, then it will be meaningful. So the surfaces for which it is possible to have a continuous unit normal on the surface, those are called orientable surfaces. So we'll say a surface is orientable if I can choose a function n which depends on the point where you are looking at, that is a unit vector at every point, and this as a function of x and y and z should be a continuous function. Right? So let us look at when it is possible, when it is not possible. Look at closed surfaces in R3, like a sphere. Right? You can always take a normal. What is normal? A arrow sticking out from the sphere. Right? As you vary the point, this will vary continuously, intuitively. Is it clear? At least geometrically it's clear that for a sphere, right, either I can choose a normal here or I can choose the pointing towards the origin. Two possibilities are there. From the origin, look at the position vector where it is touching the sphere, take an arrow going out from there. As you vary the point, this will vary continuously. Either pointing out or pointing in. Choice is yours, but everywhere it should be only out or only in. Right? You should make a choice whether you want to go out or whether you want to stay inside it. So that is continuous unit normal. So normally for closed surfaces in R3, they are all orientable. It is possible to choose a continuous unit normal. Paraboloid, right, is possible to choose. So all such things it is possible. Okay, ellipsoid, sphere, those are not parabola, ellipsoid, sorry. So, yes? Right, so we'll say it is piecewise orientable. Right, so we'll go to the extensions like this. We will say piecewise orientable, only the common portions, two surfaces joining together, only on the common portion probably there is a problem, but everywhere else it is okay, no problem. Yes?
So every differentiable surface should be orientable.
Differentiable means what?
Differentiable is not.
Well, I'll give you examples, it is not. I'll relax, okay? Let me give some examples to clarify your curiosity, and then we'll come to more questions whether it is not or it is not. Okay? So for sphere, let us look at annulus portion. In the inner boundary, and I'm not looking at the solid annulus region, I'm looking at only the hollow one. Inside one boundary, outside other boundary. These two put together is one surface. It has two pieces. The surface has got two pieces, the outside and the smaller sphere. Is that orientable? Yes, on the outer one I have a continuous unit normal, inside I have a continuous unit normal. Right? They are disjoint. Like a function defined on interval here, defined on an interval here, it is continuous here, it is continuous here, it is continuous on the domain, which is the union of the two. Right? Because they are disjoint kind of things, so no problem comes. I can use idea of the sphere. Now here is something which is not orientable. What does it look like? It is called Mobius band or Mobius strip. Okay, let me show you it is not orientable. I'll construct this surface for you. The idea is take a strip of paper, a rectangular strip. Okay, I'm going to construct this surface. If you just join this, what do you get? A cylinder, which is no problem, which is orientable, right? Whether you can have out one or inward one, depends on your choice. But let us give a twist to it. I will give a twist to the cylinder. I twist once and then join it. Okay, this piece of paper I twist once and now I join these two pieces together. So this is what it will look like, right? This strip of paper, right? Instead of joining straight away, I want to join upper with the lower one. So what I will do, I will give it a twist and now join it with this piece, vertical with the vertical one, right? So this is a surface now. 3. My claim is this surface is not orientable, right? Why it is not orientable? Essentially saying something is orientable should have something inside and outside, essentially. Geometrically saying something is orientable means you should be able to say there is an inside of that surface and there is something called outside of that surface. For this surface there is no inside and outside. If it is a cylinder, I know I can call that thing as intuitively outside and that thing to be as inside. For a sphere, something outside, something inside. Why I can't call this as inside or outside? Let us take a unit normal. This is a unit normal. I start from here. If I go along the surface and come back to the same point, I should be at the same, then it will be continuous. But if I go here and go here, now what happens when there is a twist? It becomes inside. So it comes inside here now. You started here and you will end up inside. So there is a discontinuity of that function. When you come back to the same point, your normal vector which you started with, this one has become. So look at the center line, right? If you want, you can draw a line here in the center. That is a curve along which you will be moving, right? So give it a twist and join it. Okay? So along that, when you go, right? See, if you are going out, then from here it will start coming in. See, this is outside, so it will come in now, right? And it will come back to the inside position. Because here is a twist here, right? The outside becomes inside because of the twist. So there is no outside, no inside for this Mobius band. And this is a very nice surface. All differentiability, everything will be okay for you, right? It's a piece of only folded nicely. So this is, and it is a closed surface, right? Closed is only a piece of strip I have taken and folded. Closeness remains, boundaries remain as it is, no problem comes. It's a closed bounded surface which is not orientable, right? In R3. Now this you can try. So so I have joined it, okay? This is a Mobius band. Now let us cut it across that central line. What do you think you will be getting? See, this is a cylinder. If I cut the cylinder, I get two pieces of cylinder, right? Separate pieces of cylinder. But if I give it a twist and cut it, what do you get? Shall I cut it? Okay, let me do it for you. But try to guess before I show you the answer. So I am cutting along the center line here, okay? Okay? This is like magic show being shown kind of thing. So now let me open it. What is it? There are no two pieces. Only one piece. Again a Mobius band. Slightly a bigger. Is again a Mobius band. Right? Here is a twist. It is again a Mobius band. So when you cut a Mobius band, you again get a Mobius band only. You don't get two pieces. But this is another subject which is called topology. So they study such kind of surfaces. I would strongly suggest go on the net, look for, so this is in R3 where we are able to visualize things and do it. Question comes, say in R4, right? Surface is defined in any dimension, you can define it as surface, right? You can define, this is surfaces of dimension 2 essentially, right? Every small piece looks like a plane, right? You can think of dimension of a surface. A surface, when you say parameterization means every small piece, you can think of UV coordinates at every small piece, right? and that piece is coming from R2, UV plane. So such surfaces are called surfaces of dimension 2. You can think of surfaces of dimension 3, say for example, where part of the R3 goes into something, right? There are surfaces in R4. So you can think of surfaces in any dimension, right? In R4, you can have a surface which is closed but which is not orientable. In R3, we said every closed surface is orientable, right? So you cannot visualize the R4. So it is difficult to say, physically show you. But how that object looks like in R3, right? When embedded in R3, go to the net and look for what is called Klein bottle. Okay? Look for something called Klein bottle. So, and you will see very nice picture there. It is a bottle. See, it's like imagine like something what you are doing with the Mobius band. Take a cylinder, right? Now you can join the two ends of the cylinder to get a cycle tube, right? Take a cylinder, hollow cylinder, and join the two ends, you will get a cycle tube. That circular thing you join with the circular thing, you will get a cycle tube. But do now the twist, give it a twist and join. Right? And that kind of thing you want to do it in R4. So it is something like you are twisting and joining means you are going inside and that end is joined with the end. So there is no inside of the bottle and there is no outside of that bottle. Right? If you imagine there is a tube here and you have somehow gone inside it and that end from inside you have joined it, glued it together. Right? Then can you say there is something inside of that cylinder or inside outside? There is nothing. It's something like Mobius band in that higher dimension. So that is called Klein bottle. It's very nice to see that picture. So just go and have a look at it just for the fun of it. So let me stop it here.